What up, LBS Nuts? I want to talk about the tweets from Ayesha Curry that are lighting up the internet right now, where she accused the NBA of being rigged. Now, obviously, she was upset at the time, but I want to dissect this and break it down and tell you why she was wrong for sending the tweets, but not necessarily crazy. First off, let me tell you why it was wrong of her. Her husband is Steph Curry, two-time reigning MVP. He is one of the faces of the league, appears in commercials, and is heavily promoted, probably the biggest superstar in the league. And because of his fame, which is due to the success he has on the court playing in the NBA, Ayesha has also capitalized. She has a huge fan base herself, a monstrous following in the hundreds of thousands on both Instagram and Twitter, and she has cooking shows. She is a superstar in her own right. And a lot of that is because of the fame that Steph achieved through the NBA and thanks to the league's popularity. So when you have the wife of the most famous player in the league, or maybe the second most famous, questioning the ethics of the league and the legitimacy of it, that is very troubling and problematic. Okay, if you've ever seen How I Met Your Mother, a good comparison is like, remember when Ted Mosby was designing, he was the architect behind the Goliath National Bank building, and the girl he was dating at the time, I think it was Zoe, was one of the protesters out in front. It's a huge conflict of interest. It's like the CEO of a chemical company, for instance, who represents the company, and his wife is the one who's writing letters to the editor in a newspaper complaining about their unfair and unethical practices. It's just a mixed message that is hard to have, especially when you have someone like Ayesha benefiting from a lot of the fame and money and wealth and opportunities that have been presented thanks to the NBA. That's why it was wrong. On top of that, it just comes off as petty because you didn't hear her complaining when the Warriors were winning, when they won in the finals, when Steph won MVP. You didn't hear her complaining about being rigged. So it just comes off also as someone being a poor sport, a sore loser who complains when things don't go their way. It's like a spoiled child in a sense, and people don't like seeing someone complain only when things don't go their way. So that's why it was wrong of her to send this tweet. It's not wrong of her to have a Twitter account. It's not wrong of her to speak. It's not wrong of her to share thoughts, but it's wrong for her to criticize the NBA in this manner when she benefits so much thanks to the league and when her husband does. But now I want to tell you why she wasn't crazy for sending that tweet. Now, her language saying that the league is rigged for money and ratings is just too strong of a charge and problematic. That's problematic language because saying that it's rigged implies that the league conspired ahead of time to have one team lose the game and the other team win. And you just can't get coaches and players who have so much on the line to fix games. Okay, that's when you say rigged, it's along the lines of fixing games. Okay, that's too strong of language. Now, here's what's more acceptable and kind of something that I can get on board with. If you want to say that officials across sports influence games, that is 100% true and within reason. Think about it. In baseball, you could have an umpire with a very tiny, tight strike zone, if and he's going to lead to the other pitcher getting hit more. All right. If you want the pitcher to struggle, just really reduce the strike zone. Don't call strikes. Now all of a sudden, the umpire has created a game that is most likely going to be high scoring where the pitcher struggles. In football, you can also influence a drive if you're an official by calling lots of penalties, okay? Let's say you want team A to do well. Well, you're going to call holding on team B, you're going to call defensive pass interference on team B, and that's going to allow team A to advance the ball down the field. Same thing in basketball. One of the easiest ways to influence a game for a referee is by calling fouls. The more fouls you call on a player, the less they can be on the court, and eventually if they get to 6, they foul out, which is what happened to Steph. So a referee can heavily influence a game by calling fouls on superstars, which is uncommon. Now, of course, it's within the league's best interest to have longer series because longer series means more money, more advertising revenue, and more exposure for the sport. It's good for everyone involved. Of course, they prefer 7 game series as opposed to sweeps. And let me be honest here, it's better for my business too, okay? I get more traffic the more NBA Finals games there are. So I get it. We're talking about officials influencing the game. And yeah, I think Ayesha, if she were to say that, hey, look, they let a lot of these fouls go by earlier in the series, but today they start to call them in game 6. That's a little bit weird. What's up with that, officials? I think that sort of tweet would have been fine, but it's the language of saying that it's rigged. That's taking it to another step, another level that people are not comfortable with, which is more of a serious accusation of really strong wrongdoing versus the more nuanced, hey, the officials were influencing the game by calling a lot more fouls on a superstar to give the Cavaliers a better chance of winning, which is something I could get on board with. And arguably, I think people could debate about whether or not that was the case. So that's why she's not crazy. But more importantly, though, she was wrong for her tweets.